Some stories sound like they were written for the big screen, filled with obsession, high stakes, and twists that no one could imagine. But this one is real. It's the story of Frank Barraza, a man who lived for the thrill of risk, a gambler at heart who wasn't addicted to winning, but to the adrenaline of the gamble itself. From his earliest days in Touréville, Quebec, Frank was restless. School bored him to the point of rebellion. Repetition and rules felt like chains, and so he searched for a spark. He found it when he noticed classmates stealing and reselling clothes. Most saw it as petty trouble. Frank saw opportunity. He joined in, made money, and more importantly, felt the rush that would define his life. Expelled from school, Frank shifted gears into something that ignited his mind: cars. The challenge of fixing engines, diagnosing problems, and mastering machines became his obsession. He opened a repair shop, expanded into manufacturing brake parts, and worked almost around the clock. He wasn't driven by money, he was driven by the challenge. But bodies aren't machines. After years of sleepless nights, Frank collapsed under the weight of exhaustion and panic. Doctors eventually diagnosed him with a severe panic disorder. For the first time, Frank was forced to slow down. He traveled, rested, and rebuilt his health. Yet when he came back, regular work no longer appealed. He needed something bold, something unpredictable. That's when he jumped into an unusual venture: selling Malaysian horses. The profits were enormous, but so were the risks. A police raid ended it all, placing Frank under home confinement. For 3 months, he had nothing but time to reflect. That reflection led to a single thought: what if he didn't need to earn money at all? What if he could simply create it? The idea consumed him. He studied obsessively, turning to government websites for research. Ironically, the U.S. Secret Service and Bureau of Engraving and Printing provided some of his most valuable insights. He learned about watermarks, color-shifting inks, paper fibers, and the art of engraving. He realized counterfeiting wasn't about copying it, was about mastering every detail that made a bill real. The centerpiece of his plan was a Heidelberg 4-color offset printing press, a massive industrial machine capable of professional-grade results. To acquire it, Frank pretended to be a businessman working on a shampoo ad campaign. The cover story worked. Soon, the press was hidden in a remote, windowless barn. There, Frank transformed into an artist. Every knob, every lever, every drop of ink became his obsession. He wasn't trying to make fakes, he was trying to create perfection. But even perfection on paper wasn't enough without the right material. US currency wasn't printed on ordinary stock. It was made of a unique blend of cotton and linen, embedded with fibers and chemical treatments. After searching the globe, Frank found a Swiss paper mill willing to fulfill custom requests. Step by step, he guided them first with cotton linen blends, then fibers, then chemical formulas, and finally, a watermark of Andrew Jackson. The mill didn't ask questions. When the shipment arrived, Frank treated it like a covert operation, using decoy vehicles and surveillance to ensure no one was tracking him. At last, he had everything. The results were staggering. Frank produced counterfeit $20 bills that were virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. They slipped seamlessly into circulation, moving across borders through carefully built networks. Europe, Asia, and Africa became his markets. At first, buyers hesitated, but once they saw the flawless quality, demand exploded. Frank's empire grew quickly. For every bill, he charged only a fraction of its value, but his profits still soared into the tens of millions. He reinvested constantly, building trust with small, cautious deals before scaling into larger shipments. The money flowed. The adrenaline surged. Frank had built a fortune out of thin air, but even the most careful plans eventually unravel. On May 23, 2012, just before dawn, Frank awoke to pounding at the door. Police surrounded his home. Helicopters circled overhead. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, working with the US Secret Service, had launched a massive raid Project Cranium. Inside a safe, they found nearly 1 million counterfeit bills and the press that created them. His empire collapsed in hours. Yet even then, Frank's mind didn't break. He stayed silent through questioning, refusing to give police the satisfaction. But when investigators threatened to implicate his girlfriend, who knew nothing about his operation, he made the ultimate sacrifice. He confessed, protecting her from consequences, facing extradition to the United States. Frank risked a sentence of up to 60 years. His lawyers fought back and managed to block it, leaving him to face Canadian courts instead. But prosecutors still demanded decades behind bars. What they didn't know was that Frank had held back his greatest secret. He had hidden away $200 million worth of counterfeit bills. Along with his legendary printing press, at the height of his trial, Frank revealed his trump card. He would hand over everything in exchange for his freedom. The courtroom was stunned. Authorities had believed the operation dismantled. Now, confronted with the possibility of recovering hundreds of millions in counterfeit notes, they agreed to negotiate. What followed was unlike anything in legal history. Surrounded by convoys of police, SUVs, and helicopters, Frank led investigators to a truck parked in a lot. Inside were pallets stacked with counterfeit bills and the Heidelberg press itself. Officers stood speechless. It was the largest counterfeit seizure ever made. In the end, Frank walked away. The charges were dropped. In exchange for his cooperation, his punishment, a minor fine for unrelated offenses. His associates served time. He didn't. Today, Frank Barraza's story stands as both a warning and a paradox. He built an empire on paper, risked everything for the thrill of the gamble, and escaped consequences that would have crushed anyone else. But perhaps the greatest twist is what came after. Instead of returning to risk, Frank turned his skills into a force for prevention. He now works as a consultant, helping businesses defend against the very tricks he once mastered. His life is proof that the line between genius and recklessness is Frank Barraza wasn't just a gambler of money, he gambled with life itself, and against all odds, he walked away.